Every country wants energy independence. But in Europe, a single facility now controls the fate of an entire continent's energy security. It's not a pipeline, or a government ministry, or a vast oil field. It's a terminal, a sprawling, complex, and shockingly vulnerable piece of industrial infrastructure sitting on a remote island in the North Sea. We're told the green transition is about wind and solar, but the immediate future of European power, heat, and industry hinges on the ability to import a super-chilled fossil fuel, and that ability flows through one choke point. This is the energy historian, uncovering the hidden systems that power civilization. To understand how a single terminal became so powerful, we need to go back to a moment of profound strategic miscalculation. For decades, Europe built its industrial might on a foundation of cheap, piped Russian natural gas. By 2021, the continent was importing over 40% of its gas from Russia, with Germany alone relying on it for 55% of its supply. The logic was seductive and simple. Build the pipes, turn the valve, and predictable, affordable energy flows forever. The entire system was designed for stability and just-in-time delivery, with minimal storage and even less redundancy. It was an energy strategy built on the assumption of perpetual geopolitical calm. The hidden mechanism of this dependency wasn't just the volume of gas, but its delivery method. Pipelines create a marriage. They are fixed, capital-intensive, and bind supplier to consumer in a long-term relationship. For 50 years, this marriage seemed convenient. Europe got cheap energy, Russia got hard currency and political leverage. The infrastructure itself enforced the bond. You can't easily reroute a pipeline. This created a deep, structural complacency. European industry retooled its factories to run on this specific gas stream. Governments deprioritized costly alternatives like LNG terminals, believing the pipes would always flow. Then in 2022, the marriage shattered. The invasion of Ukraine triggered the most severe energy crisis Europe has faced since the 1970s. Russia began throttling pipeline flows, sending prices spiraling to over €300 per megawatt-hour, 10 times the historical average. Panic set in, factories faced shutdown, governments feared winter blackouts. The continent faced a brutal immediate problem. It needed to replace roughly 150 billion cubic meters of Russian pipeline gas, and it needed to do it within a single heating season. The solution was a frantic, global scramble for liquefied natural gas, or LNG. This is where the choke point emerges. LNG is the opposite of pipeline gas. It's a global commodity. Gas is supercooled to minus 162 degrees Celsius, turning it into a liquid, shrinking its volume 600-fold so it can be shipped on specialized tankers. To use it, you need massive, complex import terminals to receive the tankers, store the liquid, and regasify it back into the pipeline network. Europe had neglected this infrastructure. In early 2022, it had limited LNG import capacity, concentrated in a few countries like Spain and France. The continent needed to build a bridge of tankers from the Atlantic to replace the pipelines from the east. And one facility became the keystone of that entire bridge, the Gate terminal in the Netherlands. Opened in 2011, Gate was a modest operation, a commercial project designed to handle a few cargoes a month. But its location was everything. Situated on the Maasvlakte near Rotterdam, it sits at the heart of Northwest Europe's densest gas grid. It's directly connected to the massive tidal transfer facility, the continent's virtual gas trading hub. Gas entering Gate can flow within hours to Germany, Belgium, France, and beyond. When the crisis hit, this terminal wasn't just a piece of infrastructure, it became the continent's emergency room. The numbers tell the story of its sudden dominance. In 2021, Gate's capacity was about 12 billion cubic meters per year. Following the crisis, its operators pushed it to its absolute physical limits, and expansion projects were fast-tracked. But more importantly, its market share of Europe's critical LNG imports skyrocketed. At the peak of the crisis, a significant portion of all LNG supplying Germany a nation, with no LNG terminals of its own flowed through this single Dutch facility. Its scheduling decisions, its maintenance windows, its offloading rates began to directly influence wholesale gas prices for hundreds of millions of people. Think about that for a second. The energy security of Europe's largest economy became dependent on the smooth operation of a single terminal in a neighboring country. A technical fault, a labor dispute, or even adverse weather preventing a tanker from docking could send shockwaves through markets. This is infrastructure leverage in its purest form. The terminal's operators didn't seek this power. The crisis bestowed it upon them by exposing the continent's systemic vulnerability. Control had shifted from long-term pipeline contracts to the real-time logistics of global shipping and the capacity of a handful of regasification plants. Now here's the twist. This dependency created a perverse financial dynamic. The scramble for LNG transformed Europe into the world's premium buyer, outbidding poorer nations in Asia for cargoes. European taxpayers and consumers footed a bill of hundreds of billions of euros for this emergency fuel, and a significant portion of that money flowed to the very operators of the infrastructure that was now indispensable. Terminal owners saw their utilization rates and profits surge. They became the toll booth collectors on Europe's new energy bridge, guaranteed business not by contract but by sheer desperation. Fast forward to today, and the crisis has technically eased. Storage is full, prices have fallen. But the structural dependency on this LNG bridge has hardened. Germany, in a stunning policy reversal, rushed to build its own LNG terminals from scratch, with the first at Wilhelmshaven becoming operational in record time. Yet these new terminals don't replace Gates' role. They expand the same fragile system. Europe has swapped a dependency on Russian pipelines for a dependency on global LNG markets and the specialized terminals that grant access to them. The chokepoint has multiplied, but the nature of the risk remains. The real question is no longer about where the gas comes from, but who controls the gates through which it must pass. It's a shift from geopolitical leverage to logistical and infrastructural leverage. The power now lies with terminal operators, shipping companies, and the countries that host these critical nodes. When politicians speak of energy independence today, they are often describing a more complex and in some ways more brittle form of interdependence. True independence would mean not needing the molecule at all. But until that distant future, the continent's heat and power hinge on the steady operation of a few dozen industrial facilities on its coastline, with one terminal in the Netherlands proving that in a crisis, the most powerful piece of energy infrastructure isn't always the biggest, but the one that sits at the perfect bottleneck. If this glimpse into the hidden leverage of energy infrastructure changed your perspective, you're exactly who we make these videos for. Hit subscribe to The Energy Historian. We're just getting started. And let me know in the comments, what other critical choke points in energy or other systems do you think hold disproportionate power over our daily lives?